Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katie Sewell and Tiffany Parks. Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Tiffany in Rome, Katie in Seattle. And remember, if you don't want to hear those ads, if you want ad-free listening, join us at patreon.com/The Bittersweet Life podcast, where for just $3 a month, you can have ad-free listening for every single brand new episode that we do. If you want to inch that up to $5 a month, you can also get bonus episodes as well. Find a link in the show notes. All right, on to today's topic. I have no idea what we are going to be talking about today. I only know that Tiffany is going to be bringing us a story, so let's hear what you have to say, I guess.
As you know, I have had a little bit of a few problems, a few illness problems this past week.
Yes.
That have wreaked havoc in my life. Just absolutely thrown a huge wrench in my plans. So I'll tell you that I came down with one of those terrible head colds. And I had a light fever, which, the fever just kind of makes you feel miserable. Just makes your whole body hurt and it makes you feel so weak. And I had a terrible sore throat. Luckily, it didn't go down into my lungs. If you remember last year, I ended up with bronchitis and then pneumonia and then another case of bronchitis. It came back. It was hell. And so I was just so grateful that it didn't go into my lungs. So I do have something to be thankful for. But when I came down with I don't know if it was a cold or what, the flu, I don't know. I don't even know what you call these things. I did not need antibiotics, thankfully. But it was like a Sunday, and I was supposed to be going out of town to visit my friend Maeve. If you've been listening to this show for a while, you know Maeve is my friend in Germany, my opera singer friend, who I make a point to go visit and see perform once a year, usually in the early spring. So I was very excited for this trip. Just a 2-day trip, 2 nights. It was going to be very quick, but I was very excited because it was going to be a premiere. And I thought, okay, I feel horrible, but it's Sunday. I've got until Friday to get better. And Sunday and Monday were horrible. Tuesday I was already starting to feel a little bit better. So I was like, okay, I'm on the mend. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And Wednesday, I felt even a little bit better. By Thursday, I felt almost 100%. I felt just almost great. And I, went out into the world and I was doing stuff and going grocery shopping and taking my son to karate. And I stopped by the doctor's office really quick to just have him check my lungs, check my throat, make sure that I wasn't actually sicker than I thought I was. And he gave me a pretty clear bill of health, but it was pouring and pouring, pouring with rain. It was one of those real Roman downpours where it's just like buckets are coming down. And my feet were like squish, 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 and they were sopping wet. And I couldn't, usually when you get in a downpour, if you're lucky, you just go home and, get dry. But I had all this stuff to do and I had to wait for Aurelio, so I couldn't go home. And then he was like, let's go get some pizza. And so we had to go get the pizza. Anyway, long story short, this is becoming way too long. This is the preamble to this is just like the prequel to my more recent ordeal. But suffice it to say, the next morning, I was supposed to get up and get ready and get to the airport. And I woke up and I got out of bed and I just felt like, whoa, I was like dizzy, super dizzy. And I thought I must have just gotten up too fast. But, you kind of get up the same way every morning. Like, why am I dizzy today and not other days? And I will spare you the gory details, but it was pretty bad. I was pretty sick. And I had that feeling, that feeling you have that you might throw up before it gets to the point where you're like, I know I'm going to throw up, when it's just like, I kind of feel like I'm going to throw up. And you don't want to believe it. You just like, no, I'm fine. I just feel a little off. Like maybe I ate something and maybe I didn't sleep enough. But you're like, the more time goes by, you're like, no, I really feel bad. I really feel bad. Anyway, I did get sick. I did throw up. I threw up so bad, so many times that, as you diagnosed, because you were the one who figured out what it was, I popped some kind of capillary in my eyeball.
Yeah.
Didn't hurt and it didn't affect my vision, but it was really freaky to look at. It
Yeah.
was a horrible day. Obviously,
Yeah.
I did not get to go to Germany.
You sent me a picture of your eye and you were like, "What do you suppose this is?" you know. And I'm like, "Well, didn't you just text me and tell me you were throwing up all day?" I mean, probably that has something to do with that.
I think it was the day after. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I never knew that that could be caused by that. Yeah, it was so bad that that morning I could not even make my son's breakfast.
Hmm.
Luckily, he's 10 and not 2, or I would have had to call my mother-in-law or something. But he did it all. Like you realize how self-sufficient kids are when you literally cannot help them. They were like, "I
Mm.
got this." He's like, "I got this." He's like making his snack, putting it in his little container, filling up his water bottle, getting his clothes on, and doing all
Mm.
his stuff. And luckily, I have a carpool, and
Mm.
I was supposed to go that morning, and I called Aurelio's friend's dad, and I said, "Can you please go? I'm so sick." And he did. Thankfully, he was available, and I said, "Honey, can you go down by yourself?" Because I usually walk him down. But anyways, he took care of it. He really impressed me. So I had a pretty bleak weekend, to put it mildly. But I
Yeah.
was feeling better by Sunday. Not well enough to go out, not well enough to take Aurelio to church. I did stay home, but I was feeling significantly better. And you know that those stomach flus, sometimes they're really short.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like you're going to die when you're living through it. And but then just as quickly they pass. And it's like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Which brings me to the ordeal that I mentioned to you in a text message right before we got on.
Yes.
But I felt like I needed to give the backstory because I needed you to know, listeners, how delicate and fragile of a state I was in after being so so miserably sick twice in less than a week,
Yeah.
and feeling sorry for myself to boot because I missed my trip. So Aurelio and his school participated on Wednesday of the following week after the weekend that I was just mentioning. So just a couple days after, in a track and field event.
Mm.
And it is something that I guess the city organizes, and it took place at a very famous athletic track. What do you call that? I guess just a track, like a track and field site
Okay.
in the city that it is part of, I don't guess, the Olympic complex for when the Olympics were in Rome in the 60s. And lots of different schools participate, and they have races against each other, and they do a couple of other field events. It's very, minor, just a couple of things. And it's all school, so it's not like a team that like that's what they do, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like the school is doing this for a period of time, and they're going to have a meet with other schools. And I thought I was so excited when I found out about this at the beginning of the year. I thought it was such a cool initiative. So I was looking forward to it. And so um, it's a Wednesday morning in the middle of March in Rome. And you'd think, Katie, you'd think that it'd be a nice warm spring day. The sun
Mm.
was out. It was a beautiful sunny day. And here's the thing about the weather in Rome that a lot of people don't get.
Mm-hmm.
It can be vastly different a block away. Like you can be one block away from somewhere else in the city and the weather can be different. And I know that sounds impossible. But it isn't. It's about the wind, okay? It's all about the wind. So sometimes when it's happened to me before that I've been complaining on like social media or something about how freezing cold it is in Rome. And somebody off like in a truly cold place like Maine or something like comments and's like it's like 9 degrees there, which is what is 9 degrees, like 50 something. Or it's like the high 40s or the low 50s. Like it's not that bad. It's not that cold. And I'm like, no, but you don't understand. There is something in Rome called the Tramontana. Have you heard of the Tramontana, Katie?
No.
You know what this is?
Mm-mm.
So the Tramontana is the cold northern mountain wind, right? It's the wind that comes off the mountains, and it's brutal. It's really, really cold. And I kind of like am laughing because I I make fun of Italians when they complain about how cold it is. And I'm like, like this isn't really cold. And I got up in the morning. I had a tour the day before, and I had been in a coat, and I had been quite hot because it was sunny out. And I was just like, it's probably going to be so warm. We're probably going to be sitting in the sun. I mean, it's a big open track site. There's going to be sun everywhere. Do I really need to bring my coat? I'm like, I'm just going to bring this big wool pashmina, that way, because I had to go do a tour right after. I didn't have time to go back home. And so I thought, I don't want to have that big heavy coat on. I'll just bring my pashmina. And we're getting ready. And I must have stepped outside to throw something away because my trash can is on my balcony. And I must have felt the wind and somehow registered it like almost subconsciously. Because right before we go, like we're getting our shoes on and we had to leave super early. We left the house at 7 a.m. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get my coat just in case. If I have to, I'll just leave it in the car. So I grab my coat. We drive off. We get there. We park. It's about 7:30. And I said to Claudio, do you think I need my coat? Do you think I can just leave it in the car? And he's like, leave your pashmina in the car. We're not gonna need that, but bring your coat. So we go in and like we're waiting. I mean, so much of these things is waiting around. I like I have such an empathy now for like athlete parents, like track and field any sport really, like that takes place outside where you have to just like wait around for
Mm-hmm.
hours and hours and hours outdoors.
Yeah.
So we are waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Of course, it's Italy, right? So half the people show up terribly late. Like half the schools are like trailing in at like 9 o'clock when we were told we had to be there at 8.
Mm-hmm.
We file or like they're telling us where we have to go. And so we go there. The kids go one way, the parents go the other way. And we discover that where we're sitting is completely in the shade.
Okay.
And all the moms are like, can't we go down and sit where it's sunny? And they're like, no, 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 those seats are reserved for the students, for the kids. You can't sit there. Like it was all completely blocked off. So
Mm.
we had no choice. We had to sit where it was shady. And I looked up and I saw that the sun was behind some of those big Roman pine trees. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, oh, it's going to be fine. The sun's coming up. It's 7, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. The sun's going to be up any minute and we're going to all warm up. Everybody, Katie, was shivering. Everybody, like there were grown men in wool caps and mufflers, like shivering. Everybody had their big, puffy Italian coats on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Everybody was miserable. We were freezing, Katie. And I know that the temperature was nowhere near freezing.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to guess, I would say it was like maybe 7 degrees Celsius, something like that. So again, like high 40s. So like as someone who grew up in a relatively cool place and went to
Mm-hmm.
college in a freezing cold place, you'd think that I would be tougher.
Well, you have been living in Rome for like 20 years now. So I don't know if college or
That's
where you
true.
grew
That's
up
true.
counts
I think
anymore.
that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Maybe not. My father-in-law definitely makes fun of me every time I asked him to like close the windows in the car or turn the heat on at home. He's like, "Didn't you live in Canada?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's warm inside in Canada."
Yeah.
Um, but Katie, I cannot even describe to you how miserable it was because we were there for 5.5 hours.
Ooh.
And we were standing the entire time. And the reason we were standing was because it was too cold to sit down. The
Mm.
seats were stone, and there was no way that any of us were going to sit down. Like the only thing that was keeping us alive was that we were all hopping in place or like jogging back and forth, moving our knees. Like we were all frozen. I had these like thin little cotton ankle socks on and my thin little Skechers that are
Mm-hmm.
like, and my feet felt frozen. And I know that it was worse for me because I had just recently been sick and I wasn't 100% well yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't remember, and I know I've been colder than that in my life, but honestly, I can't remember it. Like I know it's happened because I lived in these cold places, but I'm just like to be stuck somewhere and be standing and be outdoor and not have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point they were throwing this like little rubber javelin type thing. And I saw really it was all the way on the other side. And I said, let's go around to the other side so we can see this event. Oh my gosh, Katie, we walk over there. It was warm.
Mm.
It was warm. There
Wow.
was no wind and it was sunny. The sun, by the way, never came out. The sun never came out from behind those trees. Never. It moved. It kept moving, curving. Of course it curves, right? Because we're not in summer yet, but like it's curving. I'm like, you're just staying behind the trees the entire morning. I couldn't believe the difference between the other side of the track and where we were. Like it was palpably warmer. It was like it felt like 20 degrees warmer Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's why I say that it depends where you are in the city. Like it really, it can one like that. What is half of a field, a track and field? Like how could it make that much difference? But it did. And meanwhile, the kids are sitting around in shorts and t-shirts.
Mm.
Aurelio had his shorts and his t-shirt on, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, he's gonna be sick tomorrow. He's gonna be so sick tomorrow. He's gonna get bronchitis. Like, oh my gosh, he's got barely any clothes on. And afterwards, I asked him, I said, weren't you cold? And he's like, no, I wasn't cold at all. I'm like, what? How is
Did,
this possible?
did you ever at any point think about leaving?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't have done it. It's, first of all, it's in this really out of the way place. It's a part of the city where it's not connected at all by public transportation, or at least not easily. But the thing was, Katie, I had to go to a tour after that.
Right.
And not only that, but I was on a time crunch. The thing was going on longer, of course, because it's Italy. The thing is going on longer than it's supposed to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And the very last thing that they do is, of course, like give out the medals and stuff like that. Everybody gets a medal, of course, because elementary school. So, all the schools are coming out. And of course, his school is like one of the last. And I had to finally just go. And I told Claudia, I was like, I can't stay to watch the little medal ceremony.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I did. I did technically leave early, but it was like 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early or something like that. But then I had to go find a cab, Katie. And I was just like, those days when you just feel so sorry for yourself? It's like you just can't even believe that this is like, I just felt as I'm looking for a cab because there was a, Claudia's like, there's a cab stand right down there. But it's like this huge area with these huge government buildings. And you can say, okay, the cab stand's right in front of the building, but the building is huge. Like, which part? Is it on this right corner? Is it on the left corner? Is it in
Mm-hmm.
front of the parking area? Is it after the parking area? So I'm like wandering, trying to find the cab. Finally, I found one. And I just sitting in the cab and I was just like, I'm dead. I'm just absolutely frozen solid and exhausted. It was a combination of being tired and being cold, I think,
Uh-huh.
that was the problem.
Yes. Well,
And
okay.
when I finally got home, Katie, when I finally got home, I did something that you suggested I do on, I think, our last bonus episode, which is take a bath.
Mm. Yeah. And
Oh my God. It felt so good. It felt so good. Oh, it was perfect.
there really is nothing better than the feeling of really warm water when your skin is super cold. It just has that nice
Oh,
warm tingle. Okay, well, I want to ask you another question, but I think before I do, we need to take a little break. So let's do that first, and
okay.
then I want to ask you a question in a different direction.
Okay.
All right, and we're back. Okay, I actually have two questions I want to ask you before we run out of time. And this one you're going to just have to guess at. But I wonder, like, let's say the only bad thing that had happened to you was that you had to stand for 5 hours in the cold watching kids play sports. Okay? It was freezing cold, but tolerable in a misery sort of way. Like, oh, what an awful day that was. But I wonder if it seems worse because it's compounded by being ill, of course, but also compounded by the secret underlayer here, which is great disappointment, which was, you had a trip planned that you were really, really looking forward to that got pulled out from under you. Sometimes I wonder, because like sometimes trips like that are like the beacon on the hill, where you're like, okay, no matter what is
Mhm.
happening in a couple weeks, I'm going to be hanging out with Maeve and it's going to be awesome, you know? And so you just go about your days with that on this big, glorious horizon. And then when the rug gets pulled out from underneath us of this one beautiful thing that we were looking forward to, we try to be like, well, what can you do? Like, I got ill, everything got in the way, you know, it's okay, I'm mature, we'll schedule another time. But yet, you know, you have lost this thing that you were really looking forward to as the big break on the horizon. And I do feel like, and I want to know if this is the same for you, that can affect you for many days to come, even if it's not in a tangible way. It can be like blatant depression, or it can just be like, oh my God, my whole body hurts, or this event is intolerable because that event, I mean, in another, to look at it in another way, if you had just gotten back from visiting Maeve, that event might not have been as insufferable. You know, you might still be somehow living in the glow of that fun weekend, even if you're freezing your butt off standing next to a field. So I don't know. Do you think
Yeah,
that disappointment?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think so. I think so. I think it was all adding to the sense of feeling sorry for myself.
You never
Obviously,
get to
with
do
the day that I
anything
was
fun.
sick. Yeah, or just like this is, you know, the day of, I'm just thinking, not only am I not going on this trip, but I'm in absolute misery. You know, it didn't get canceled because, well, like the flight was canceled, you know, or, oh, I had to work or something, you know, something came up. No, I'm not going because I am absolutely being tortured right now physically. I will say, I think the disappointment was less than it might have been. A, because I do go and visit her every year. And so if it had been the first time, like my first weekend away with a friend without my husband and my son, I think that it would have been way worse, much bigger disappointment. But this is would have been like the fourth time, I think. And so part of me was a little bit less disappointed because of that. But I also think that the relief of getting over it relatively quickly, the stomach flu, was so great that I was almost like, I don't even care. I'm just so happy that I'm not throwing up anymore.
Yeah.
But that does pass too, because eventually you just, you know, you go back to being normal.
Yep.
You know, hopefully, if you're well, you go back to being normal. But for sure, there was some residual disappointment.
Yeah. I guess to end, I want to ask, because you did tell me about one great thing that happened on this horrible day. And I thought it would be fun. I haven't actually heard about it. You just sent me a few pictures. And so we might as well end with the great thing that happened on that day.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say it was a horrible day because it was really wonderful. The second half of the day was wonderful. I was with someone else's kid. No, I mean, I was.
Yeah.
Sounds horrible. It makes me sound like a terrible mother. I loved watching Aurelio run, by the way. It's not like I didn't care. I did care, and I was like super enthusiastic for him. It was just the coldness that I couldn't handle.
Yes.
But in the afternoon, I had a tour with a family who had read my book to their daughter, not once, but twice. So the mom, who is an English, I discovered is an English teacher. She didn't say what grade she teaches. It seemed like maybe it was middle school or high school. She found my book, Midnight in the Piazza, by the way, if you don't know, randomly in her public library. And she checked it out because I guess maybe they already had their trip planned or they were thinking about going to Italy. And her husband read it to their daughter. And she loved it so much that she made her dad buy a copy of it and she gave it to her mom as a present because she wanted her mom to read it to her.
Yeah.
And I took a picture of the title page, you know, that she had made it out to her mother. It was just so cute. She said, "Mom, I want to read this with you. I want to read this book with you because the author is a tour guide in Rome. Happy birthday, Mom. Love, Josephine."
That's so cute.
So her mom read it to her. And then afterwards, you know, they were like, well, let's see if she's written anything else. And so they Googled me and they discovered that I was a tour guide. And so that's when the dad reached out to me and booked a tour. And he's like, we want to do the Jewish ghetto because that's where the book takes place.
Right.
And I said, well, I usually do the Trastevere and the Jewish ghetto. together on one tour. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Just, I want to make sure, he told me, that his daughter had read the book. And he said, I just want to make sure that we, go to the turtle fountain because my daughter's read your book. And I was like, okay, I'll make sure I take you to like a couple of sites that are mentioned in the book.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people on my tour who've read my book, adults and kids. It's always a huge pleasure, a huge delight for me. Most authors, the vast majority of authors, I would say even authors who are very successful. I'm not going to talk about J.K. Rowling and people like that, but like authors from the nobodies all the way up to like pretty important authors.
Mm-hmm.
We're never treated like celebrities. Like we're just not like author. It doesn't matter how famous your book was, unless you're J.K. Rowling. Like nobody's gonna treat you like a celebrity. Nobody's gonna recognize you on the street.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna, it's very unlikely somebody's gonna be just like starstruck by you. And
Mm-hmm.
this little girl was starstruck by me.
Wow.
And her mom, every so often, her mom would say, "Can you believe we're in Rome with Tiffany Parks?" It was just the cutest
So
thing.
cute.
It didn't hurt that she was just about the most adorable child I've ever met. Um,
All right.
Beautiful, dressed so stylishly and just adorable and smart and said the most interesting things. She kept getting more and more excited as we got towards the Jewish ghetto. And then we stopped in some of the places that are mentioned in the early scenes of the book, the Portico of Octavia, the Theater of Marcellus, and the little cookie shop where she buys the chocolate chip cookie, where she breaks her phone. And she kept asking, is this where she broke her phone? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much right around here. Like as if it was a real person who had lived,
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
Right.
that's what you dream of. That's the dream,
Right.
as a writer, is when people read your book and it becomes real for them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there can be anything better than that as a writer.
Yeah.
Because it's real for you. It's totally real for you. But to make it real for someone else is like,
Mm-hmm.
that's why we do what we do.
Well, and I mean, I think that the age that that you write for middle readers, that age is like the perfect age for feeling like this kid existed here once, and now I'm walking
Yeah.
in her footsteps. Yeah, that's so adorable. I mean, although I will say that what I think on last year's Rome, Bittersweet Life Rome tour, and maybe even the year before, we'd round the corner to where the turtle fountain is, and people within the tour group would just gasp because they've read your book and be like, oh my gosh, there it is, the turtle fountain. And if you've never been to Rome before and you have no idea what the turtle fountain is, it's very iconic in Tiffany's book. Like the book revolves around this fountain, but the truth of it in Rome is that it's kind of hidden. It's not like if you're just
Hmm.
casually walking around Rome, you're going to bump into it most likely. It's in a very, very tiny courtyard, and you come in on these very narrow alleyways. And because of that, like when it suddenly is in front of you, it's almost like a shock, where you're like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, the fountain with the turtles on it.
it
And I
is.
think it is one of Rome's most iconic fountains, honestly, because most fountains don't have like little turtles on it, and so it's just very recognizable. So
Yeah,
yes,
and beautiful. It's just straight up beautiful.
it is. Yes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody loves it. People ask people who live in Rome, what's your favorite fountain in Rome? I would say that a majority, or at least a large portion, would say the Turtle Fountain.
Yeah, because it's so
Um,
whimsical. So many of the
mhm.
other ones are so serious,
Yeah, and it's
or
just been restored, so it's in such beautiful condition right now.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
very
it
cute.
was it was very special, and I took her to the courtyard of Palazzo Mattei, which is where there's a concert in the book that takes place there. That was sort of where we ended, and she was just like, I mean,
Yeah, it's like walking into
couldn't
a palace for a girl her
yeah,
age.
but
I
I
mean, it is a
mean,
palace, but
it is a palace, but it wasn't about the beauty of the place, which it is beautiful, but it was just like I could see it coming to life before her. Because, of course, when you read a book or when you have a book read to you, you are using your imagination. You're imagining those statues, you're imagining this opulent, beautiful courtyard or the fountain. I mean, yes, you can see a picture of the fountain on the cover of the book, but that courtyard, she's using her imagination.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, to see it in real life for the first time, it was just so special to see her eyes light up like that. And both of her parents, I'm not trying to blow my own horn here, but they honestly they gave me some really, really wonderful compliments. And they said, we're book snobs. We don't like a lot of books. We don't like a lot of we don't like a lot of kids' books. Like a lot of them aren't good, but we
Mm-hmm.
loved your book. And she, listed several things that she loved about it, some of which, to be honest, I didn't even like think about. Like I never even considered. There were things that sort of just happened organically that I didn't necessarily plan for.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also made me feel very good. And, you know, if you've listened to this show, if you've listened to our New Year's resolution shows, you know that I have been blocked a lot lately and have been very discouraged in my writing lately. And I have to say that that encounter really inspired me to get back at it.
Yeah, and to also realize like that you made such a nice, beautiful thing. Yeah, because it can get in the rear view mirror too, you know, where you're like, yeah, I wrote a book, but you don't think about it all the time anymore. And yet, you know, it is this beautiful thing that you created that kids are still finding, which is great.
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that book was published before that girl was born.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy to think, isn't it?
it
Jeez.
is. It really is.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Speaking of Rome, we are going to be announcing our 2026 Rome trip for this coming fall very soon. And if you want to get early access, if you want to be notified, let's say, send us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, and maybe you'll want to come along to Rome with us and see the turtle fountain for yourself and meet this author for yourself.
And this other author whose book is not going to be out quite yet, but it will be very soon.
Yes, mine will be out in a year from the trip, most likely. So, yes, if you want to get to know an author before they're a published author, then you can also come to Rome and meet me. But yes.
But the main thing is that we are going to show you the most amazing places in Rome, places that people don't find, like the Turtle Fountain, but like many, many others, and go really deep in the history and all of the layers of history of Rome and all of the beauty that is there and the historical context and the cultural context. And it's a special trip.
It is a special trip. So Bittersweet Life podcast@gmail.com. If you want to be notified about the trip details and maybe join us this coming fall. I will say, for those of you who have heard us say this for the last 3 years, and you keep thinking to yourself, you know, I better write them and get on that. I would like to write them sometime and be notified. That would be a good thing to do. And then you forget to do it, or you put it off and be like, you know, this fall is really not my year. I'll just go next year. Since we're talking about it, like Tiffany just said, I have a book that's going to be published in the fall of 2027. And as such, the tour will not be happening next year. So this is your chance to go do it. You can't put it off till next year because it's not happening next year. So if you've been interested for a while, send us an email, bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com, and come to Rome with us. We will send you the details. All right, we'll leave it there. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Join us again. Bye. Don't miss your chance to explore the Rome most tourists never get to see by coming to Rome with us. We'll take you through the history, art, and stories of Rome in a way that you will never forget. Visit thebittersweetlife.net for more information or email us at bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com.